Yes, hi, my name is Larry Younger. I'm the agent for 71 Walker and the spouse of the owner.
No, no. I have just a point of clarification. I wonder if the applicant could tell me how much the new expanded deck sticks out beyond the front of the adjacent properties. It's an unusual thing in that it's a deck on the front of the house, and I don't think it's beyond the front of the other houses. But I'm wondering if that could be clarified.
Sure, that's actually a deck in the back of the house. The front of the house is on Walker.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake.
Okay.
I've got too many notes on this one. No, okay, I agree with you. Thank you.
Just so you know, so there's 5 identical houses. Our 4 neighbors have the exact same house and have the same deck extension, and we're the 5th house in a row to do the same deck extension.
I made the mistake when I was reviewing your application, and I put a cross through it, and I didn't see my own notes, so my apologies.
Okay, no problem.
And the zero soft landscaping, that's existing condition?
That's correct. There's no soft landscaping because we're in the back way is an laneway on the backing the houses on Alcorn, so there's absolutely no soft landscaping in where we want to put the deck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Nimrod, go ahead, Nimrod, I'll second that.
Okay, I think, for example, one of the variances is really an existing condition. That's the soft landscaping. And the second variance, I believe, is minor. So I'm going to recommend a motion to approve the variances with no conditions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Good afternoon, committee panels. This is Bomdad Baghdadi from BBA Design Studio. I'm the applicant and architect for this application. Sure. We don't have any overall height variance. It's a wall height variance. Since we have a flat roof, it's taken to the ceiling of the the 3rd floor. I sent a report to the committee explaining our wall height variance, and I also sent some comparable at which the closest property to us is 418 MacRoberts, which their wall variance was 10.28. We are only at 9.35, which is in check with what's been approved before at the committee. Also, I have 328 MacRoberts, 381 MacRoberts, 16 Kitchener, and 376 Harvey Avenue, all with wall variances higher than what I'm proposing.
I've got a question for the applicant. Does the lot slope down towards the back? Because it looks like at the rear that it's a 4-story house at the back.
Yes, that's correct. The lot slopes towards the back, and our basement becomes a walkout.
And I
All the
believe
property, yeah, sorry.
I believe you are showing for the balconies at the rear that are you showing privacy screening on
Yes.
all those balconies?
I have balcony on the first floor and third floor only, and I'm proposing a privacy screen both sides of the third floor balcony, and also both sides of the first floor balcony, which is shown on drawing A3B for the first floor and drawing A3D for the third floor, which is highlighted 1.5 meter high pressure treated wood privacy screen. Also, they are shown on my side elevations as well. Yes, it's marked on the third floor and the first floor. Yes.
Chair, so I wonder, I'm just looking along the street and just trying to get a sense. It looks like it's a number of relatively small homes, not very wide frontages. I was just looking to see whether there were the other basement walkouts on the front, and I couldn't quite see too many. I wonder if the applicant could speak to whether there are existing basement walkouts.
Yes, Mr. Clay, there are basement walkout at 461, 431, 427, 366, and 368 MacRoberts Avenue. They all have
you were anticipating that question, weren't you?
Well, I'm here since 2, so and thank you for your patience for today. So many was dragging so long.
That's good, thank you. I couldn't see too many of them, but that's helpful.
Sure.
I have a question that flows from the one that the chairman asked you. My understanding is that the area in which you're proposing to build is, or proposing to renovate, is predominantly bungalows, very small little bungalows, and some 2-story. To the best of my knowledge, there's nothing that's as high as this. And if you look at your drawing A5A, you can see, further to Mr. Solomon's point, you can see that the effective height of the building at the back is 4 stories, and at the front it's 3.5 stories. And I personally don't see how that is a modest and comfortable fit with an area that's predominantly bungalows and in some cases 2 stories. Unless do you have any further information? Because at this point, I'm really having trouble with this application.
The properties that I mentioned at 418, 381, 328, and 376 Harvey, they're all are the same. Actually, we are lower in height than what they're proposing. I'm not sure if you have access to Google Map right now. If you can go and see the 418 MacRoberts Avenue, for instance.
I saw those, but
yeah,
I did see those, but I also in the immediate, I mean, I think we always need to look at what we're doing in the context of the immediate community, and the immediate neighbors to this house are really low-rise homes, and the proposal that you have before us, while it would fit in beautifully in other locations, I don't personally think it fits in this particular location because of the predominance of bungalows and a few 2 stories. The fact that there might be another 3-story house at 18, which is some distance from here, fine, but I have trouble with the height.
Yes, Mr. Well, we as Mr. Mr. I'm sorry, the names.
Nipfel.
No, yes, sorry, Mr. Nepal. As you mentioned, there's other two-stories close by, and this is a changing neighborhood. There are many, many three-story houses on MacRoberts, for instance. And from the street, we are only have a three-story house. Although it's in the back for a story, but the back is facing all the garages in the back and the laneway, so there is no impact of our proposal to look like a four-story in the back to anyone, because nobody can see it. That's the technical, because of the LEUTY slope that is going down from the front all the way to the back. And as I explained, many applications have been approved with three-story. Our wall height is a technical variance because we have a flat roof. We comply with the 11-meter overall height, and 3 stories is permitted in this neighborhood also, as per zoning bylaw. And well, when I have a flat roof which complies with the overall height, well, obviously I have to support that roof with the wall, which technically and as a technical variance, I have a wall height variance, which again, based on immediate neighbors that have the approval from the committee for wall height, our wall height is actually lower than all those approved applications.
Yeah, I've had a lot of trouble with this application. There are so many variances that are proposed, and this is a very narrow lot. I believe the lot frontage is only 18 feet. And
Yeah.
so when you've got some very small lots, they've got bungalows on them, and now you're proposing to go up 3 floors, flat roof, that technical, supposedly technical variance for height really isn't technical. It changes the nature of the massing and bulk of that building. And I do have concerns of how this really fits in. And if every lot like comes in with this type of application, it will just change the entire nature and character of that street.
Not to make too fine a point on it, I share the points that were just raised. I don't think it's in keeping, and whether it's measured this way or not, visually it isn't even 3 stories. It's 3.5 stories from the street.
So I'll move a motion to refuse the variances.
Good afternoon. Yes, this is Saba Al-Metnu from QBS Architects. Okay, so what we are proposing here is really a simple and small variance that was misunderstood by the neighbors, and one of the neighbors actually rallied and campaigned the whole street against the application. Immediately when we started this application, we were in direct contact with the neighbor. I personally had spoken with the next door neighbor. We are asking for one minor variances, which is FSI, and due to the definition of average grade, the basement area of 413 square meter has been counted in our FSI. Hence, the FSI jumped from 0.62, which
Sorry.
if we were to discard the basement, sorry, can you hear me? Hello? Okay, sorry. To 0.77%. We have worked closely with the next door neighbor. We listened to him. We pulled the balcony 1.2 meter from the mutual wall, and we provided floor to ceiling privacy screen, as you can see in the support document that was uploaded, and you can see on your screen as well, clearly on the back. So clearly we had the neighbors in mind when we planned this addition. Our balcony is extremely smaller than the next door neighbor balcony. And we did the U shape on the right-hand side of the bathroom to actually block any privacy impeachment for the side neighbors. If you can see from the Google Earth map that I supported and added all of the property numbers that are in opposition, you will see the area is heavily treed. So really there is no privacy impeachment. And to their point, in one of their letters they mentioned, there is an embankment. So the backyards are actually higher. So even we are not impeaching on any of the back neighbors, or like there are no really back neighbors. Exactly, this is what you can see. It's a simple, most of the neighbors were objecting to the privacy impeachment, which we don't believe any privacy impeachment are there. We listened to the neighbor. We proposed to do a sound insulation on the third floor because we know it's it's an old construction. There is no change at all to the front of the property. It's exactly as it is, only to the back. So what we are adding is only 4 feet on the second floor and 4 feet by about 6 feet on the third floor for the bathroom. So this is basically our application. We tried to be respectful with the environment. We used siding. So it's just like, this is what the extra bedroom, the entire third floor, like most 75% of the proposed third floor is within the existing roof. We have no height variance. We have no side yard setback. We have no length variance. Yeah. So this is what what we are proposing. And we believe it's minor in nature. It provided an extra bedroom and bathroom for our clients.
Yes, Brian Snyder. Can you hear me? Yeah, 416 Davenport Road. Before I begin, could I ask the technician to put up the photo of the owner's supportive material March 11th, size 0.77, and show the second line of photos, specifically the 2 photos on the right side of the second line, please, before I begin. Yeah, March 11th, supportive material of the owner. The size of the file is 0.77. And show the second. Yes. The second line of photos, the two on the right, please. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, the two on the right. Okay, so I'm ready when you want me to start. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm the owner of 416 Davenport. I have a shared wall with 418. I've lived here 30 years, and I oppose the variance requested. I support the detailed arguments submitted by the resident of 408 Davenport. After reading them, I realized the proposal at 418 was in fact a very major variance. No variances had been approved in the past for our row of identical semi-detached homes. It's a disruptive addition. Other houses could, over time, mimic it. I then sent the committee a second, stronger letter of opposition. I asked that the variance be rejected. This plan for the semi does not fit in comfortably with my other semi. The massive big block is completely out of character. Also, the architect did not provide elevation plans to compare the two semis. They need to try again and make it more reasonable. Please note that the neighborhood opinion of this proposal is decidedly negative. 8 of the 10 closest neighbors do not fully support the proposed site plan. Please consider this neighborhood opinion. There was no consultation, especially with the 2 immediate neighbors, before we received the site plan 4 weeks ago. We both oppose it. When the owner mentioned his idea to me in May 2020, I said it should be smaller, but there was no communication with me after that. Consultation with us could have decreased the FSI and modified or sloped the third floor roof to mitigate its height or change it to a smaller dormer. The variance requested with an FSI of 0.77 is very much on the high side. It needs to be under 0.7. It's out of character in its size and scale for the area. It adds to the existing footprint. The architect could, in the future, contact the immediate neighbors and find common ground. Approving the variance would set a precedent, an unfortunate one for an area that is stable and not in transition. The owners, one of whom is a realtor, have not lived here in over a year. This has not been their primary residence, and they have left it vacant. Our neighborhood has a visual harmony. The proposal would encroach on neighbors' privacy, sunlight, and views of the escarpment and the Spadina House Forest, which flanks us to the west. It is too large, a box which would stick out noticeably in this row of 12 semis, and would be an unfortunate addition, so close to the forest and the escarpment. Our lots are narrow, only 22.5 feet wide. None of the houses have added third floors. Under this proposal, there would be an almost doubling of morning shadow at 420 and afternoon shadow at 416 Davenport. Our backyard flatland is very small, just the first 20 feet behind our houses, and this would all be affected by permanent shadowing. Our backyards are mostly hillside with terrace. It's a tight situation and requires a delicate touch by an architect. Finally, if for some reason the plan is approved, I would ask you to please add a condition to at least take off the third floor balcony roof overhang, which is 26 feet above our yards and would cast a wide shadow from morning to evening. Thank you.
Yes, I am. Thank you. I am Carol Dubross, owner and resident at 420 Davenport Road. I am the direct neighbor on the west side of the subject property. I've lived here for 29 years. I oppose the requested variance and respectfully propose that the application be substantially modified and resubmitted. We are a row of 6 almost identical semi-detached buildings and 1 detached house. So we comprise of 13 separate residences. Except for 4 residents and the subject property, you'll see that everyone else on this block has sent in letters of opposition. And there's good reason for this opposition. Along this block, we all enjoy very unique terraced woodland gardens at the rear of our houses. Yes. Okay. We comprise of 13 separate residences. Can you hear me? Except for 4 residents and the subject property, you will see that everyone else on this block has sent in letters of opposition. And there is good reason for this opposition. Along this block, we all enjoy very unique terraced woodland gardens at the rear of our houses. But because we are semi-detached, we are all living in very close quarters. The actions of one property owner in our row has the effect on all others in regard to sound, view, light, and private enjoyment of our own properties. 418 Davenport is calling this a minor variance, when in fact I see it as a major variance. It is a 3-story addition, asking for so much extra floor space than permitted by the zoning bylaw that the addition has to jut out and up into the escarpment garden, reducing the light, which the committee can see in our sun shadow report, and infringing on the privacy of the neighbors. During discussions with the architect reduced the original length of the 3rd floor balcony and added a wood privacy screen for the 3rd floor balcony. But they retained the 2nd floor flat roof beside the privacy screen. A wood privacy screen could be too easily removed, which would eradicate privacy for the neighbor. The architect's plan leaves the neighbor in danger of having a 3rd floor balcony peering over their property. I also do not see the design conforming to the style and character of our neighborhood or the semi-detached house beside it, as the committee mentioned when they rejected the application for 360 Harvey Street earlier today. We have traditional style houses here. This application looks like a condominium development stuck on the back of the house. I would like to help my neighbor get what they want, but the plans as they are now are undesirable for the appropriate development and use of the land. And I respectfully request that the application as it stands be refused. Before I go, I have one question. Why on the site plan is the building labeled semi-detached fourplex? Is this a fourplex or a single family? I would oppose a fourplex. Thank you.
I am. Can you hear me? Okay, is this better? Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Nerms. I'm going to start with a very brief background. Apart from number 418, the applicant, 408 Davenport Road. Apart from number NURMSE. Apart from number 418, the applicant, whose property has been vacant for the better part of the pandemic, and apart from one other house, the rest of the owners of this iconic uniform row of almost intact original single-family homes have been the same owners for about 20 years, some around 30 years, and some even longer. They, like myself, enjoy the setback from the road, elevation from the sidewalk, and the unique, beautiful sloped terraced backyards that back onto a city-owned, protected woodland ravine area consisting of legendary old trees on the shoreline of former Lake Iroquois. This protected woodland ravine is regularly examined by the city's urban forestry arborists and could be affected in some way. As for the applicant's variance, I object to it. The site plan labels number 418 as a semi-detached fourplex dwelling, and Carol alluded to this. This is very concerning. Perhaps the applicant can speak to this. The other concerning points for me are that the variance is not minor. It asks for a floor space index 17% greater than what is allowed. The additions will not fit comfortably with the attached neighbor, and they go above and beyond the allowable by very close to 500 square feet, which in itself can be an entire small house, or in the case of Toronto these days, a large condo. This is excessive, insensitive, and obstructive. It creates negative impacts such as greatly limiting sunlight in yards and windows, shadowing, and a major loss of privacy through visual intrusion for all the neighbors, not just the direct neighbors. The development does not maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaws. It's based on creating maximum usable floor space and skirting the restrictions. I wonder, is this about necessity, or is it about profit, or what? But I trust, especially after having listened all afternoon, I trust our committee of adjustments. I trust that the integrity of the zoning bylaws will be upheld and not undermined one property at a time. In fact, this entire neighborhood trusts that the planning exists to serve the interests of the neighborhood and eliminate negative impacts rather than accommodate individual ambition, should that be creating for-profit investment properties from much-needed single-family homes or not. The applicant knew what the zoning bylaws were before starting to draw plans, yet the plans are all about what they want, and the plans are nothing about what the bylaws require and allow and what fits into the uniformity of the neighborhood. If this variance is allowed, it will be a slippery slope, so to speak, as it will set a dangerous precedent here where our homes are, creating a new norm and possibly a row of investment properties instead of much needed residential modest homes as exists now. I respectfully request, and again, I trust that the respected Committee of Adjustments will not allow this to happen and will refuse the variance. Thank you for considering my views.
Mis-
I think Carl
Mr.
has a
Chairman.
question.
Mr. Chairman, this is the second speaker that's referred to the title of a drawing indicating that this is a fourplex, and I can't find that. Can somebody identify what drawing it is, or can we put it up on the screen? I missed that. Okay, I don't see it on my site plan. Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Hello? 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 Can I be heard?
We can hear you.
Oh, great. Oh, hi. Hello. Okay, I'm Penny Ulster. I'm at 428 Davenport Road. I'm the single house, not a semi-detached. I've been here since, I might be the oldest kid on the block. I've been here since 1984. Really enjoying this property. There's not much I can add because so many points have been made until now, so I'll just be very brief. We live on a hill, as has been said, and light is so precious. I have so little, and I am really sensitive to and appreciate and support any neighbor who fears loss of light, because it is so precious. As another precious commodity is privacy, but especially light. And just for myself, since I might not be directly impacted, I certainly have worry because houses are bought and sold on the strip, that this can be a precedent for future building. And I'd hate to see this neighborhood change and larger structures go up. So that's what I have to say. Okay, thank you.
Pound for more options.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I am really sorry. Can I? Okay. So number one, I sincerely apologize for the typo on the drawings. It's definitely not a fourplex. And certainly our application didn't refer to it being fourplex, nor it was designed nor fourplex. It's a single family dwelling, to be maintained single family dwelling. To answer the neighbors about, like, I am really in shock why Mr. Snyder saying he has no communication. I personally had talked to him on the phone 3 times. I have emails from him on February 19 and on March the 5th, I believe. We discussed the application, and even my clients went and discussed the application with a couple of the neighbors. Regardless, this is not my point. My clients, they really want to do this extension for their own self. Like, yes, he's a real estate agent, but that does not mean he's going to sell every house he's going to live in. And right now, due to COVID, and they had to move in with family, and they will be back once things are on, because they are working from home and they have a kindergarten child who's attending virtual schooling. That's why they are not in the house. In terms of the privacy and character, like, I listened to them, and if they are feeling the 3rd floor balcony is what's gonna impede onto their privacy, I just talked to my clients. We are willing to eliminate the balcony and replace it with like Juliet or just like windows. And we are willing to reduce the bump of the 3rd floor bedroom, as Mr. Snyder suggested in his email. They've waited unfairly for all this time for the hearing. They really needed to go on with their application. In terms of not being out of character, I disagree. We maintained the streetscape exactly as per. We are not touching the front of the house, and even from the back, we maintained the existing roof slope. The material, we tried to be as close as possible to the color of Mr. Snyder's, which is next door neighbor's balcony, which he used the wood, dark wood decking. So we tried to use the same. But if it's, as I said, our clients are more than happy to eliminate the 3rd floor balcony altogether and go with windows, if that's going to make the neighbors happy. And, you know, they want to continue to live there and get along with the neighbors.
Yeah, I guess, you know, I did hear from a couple of the residents that they were willing to consider modifications. I'm just wondering what's the best way to proceed. Are you prepared to reconsider the actual 3rd story and how, as opposed to a almost like a flat roof at the back, something more compatible perhaps?
Yes, we are willing to go with the pitched roof bit on the 2nd floor that goes up to the 3rd floor. So if you go to the letters of opposition from Mr. Snyder, he did. Mhm. So we'll. Okay, then what we can do, we can say we are eliminating the 3rd floor balcony altogether and replacing it with and eliminating the flat roof below it.
Could I just clarify? I can understand if we were to talk about a pitched roof versus a flat roof, it could definitely impact variances. And the Deputy Secretary Treasurer is quite right to be reminding us of that. However, we could, I think, include a recommendation that the balcony, as shown on the submitted drawings, is to be deleted without it infecting any of the variances. So that kind of a change, that could happen, right? We can't go around redesigning the envelope, but that's a case of taking something off of a drawing. Thank you for clarifying.
So are we in committee now, or are we still at questions?
No, I finished, and I agree, and I welcome the suggestions from the committee. We are willing to remove the third floor balcony completely.
So just one, Chair, I don't want to belabor this one, but I thought I heard the applicant, the next door neighbor adjoining there was concerned about the overhang on the roof on the third floor as well. Did I hear the applicant suggest that they might be able to trim that back as well? Yeah, I'm actually asking. Yeah, I was asking the applicant if that was something they're prepared to deal with, just because that would be a nice one to similarly to be able to just eliminate.
Yes, we are. Sorry, am I in? Yes, we are willing to cut the overhang.
Yeah, okay, good. Thank you. Okay, now we can go back to committee.
So after hearing all the various comments and options, I'm wondering whether there's a consideration for a deferral so that there's an opportunity for the applicant to work out some revisions that are more amenable to the neighbors, immediate neighbors in the along the stretch.
So, in a rare form of being contrary to Nimrod, I'm going to take a slightly different view. I look at the variance. The variance that was before us is a simple one, and it's really only dealing with FSI and frankly a fairly modest increase to the FSI. And I think we need to consider that as in the context of making a whole bunch of additional changes. I think there are no other variances, no height variance, no depth variance. It's only extending 4 feet out the back. I did hear the applicant being willing to eliminate the third floor balcony to trim back the third floor overhang. You know, if, in my view, if subsequently they could come to an agreement about the roof pitch, great. But I'm not sure, you know, in the whole context of trying to streamline these things and get these things going, that you know, it's going to be that much different by deferring it. I'm more in favor of dealing with the application as it is with the adjustments that we've been talking about. But again, defer to my colleagues as well.
I support trying to deal with it as well today. The one thing that's got lost in all of this that I think is really important, if you looked at the location map and all of the people in objection mentioned it, this is a rather unique, iconic stretch of road with identical semis, and they're concerned that character be preserved. I think in the architect's favor, she has gone to some pains to put her addition, as we've encouraged others to do, more at the back of the property and to retain the sloped roof at the front, so that from the street, as I look at the drawings, there's minimal impact from this addition on the streetscape, so that it looks to me as though that group of semi-detached is safeguarded as an iconic and unique group. That to me would have been a huge issue if there hadn't been steps taken to maintain that. Because that's been maintained, I'm with Mr. Clay. I would like if the applicant agrees to take the balcony off of the top level. I can understand that there are privacy concerns with that balcony. I don't know about the overhang, how that could be accommodated, because it might potentially affect the variance, but I'd be prepared to support this with just the balcony being removed.
Well, maybe I'll take a crack at it, Chair, with Barb's help. Maybe I'll put a motion to approve this application, subject to a couple of conditions. One, that the third floor balcony be eliminated. Barb, do we have to sort of say what is eliminated by? Because I heard windows. Okay, but we don't have to suggest what substitutes for that. That's fine. Okay, so I will make a motion to approve this application subject to those conditions, and I don't believe there are any other conditions. No. So I'll move that motion.
I'd second the motion.
Hi, how are you? Alex Kaczarski. I'm the owner of 233 St. John's Road.
I have one simple question. Alec, could you give me, or could you explain to me the extent of the pergola? And we could pull up a drawing and you could use that as reference. I'm not quite sure that I have a good grasp of where it is, how extensive it is. I think I know, but I'm referring to, just a second, and I can tell you I'm referring to the, I guess it's the second floor plan, and it's got the pergola below, and I'm just trying to figure out if those dotted line, is that the extent of the pergola, or does it go all the way around what is the principal bedroom?
Oh, the pergola. Oh, no, I think that's just a canopy overhang.
Okay, then. Somewhere in all of this material is reference to a pergola, and I wanted to make sure that I understood where that was.
It's just on the over the off the cantilever below the.
So does it only extend at the back of the house and not around the side?
That's the rear of the
and
rear
then
of the
how far
house
is it?
just off to the side there, as you can see on the drawing.
And how far out does it extend?
2 feet. Or
okay, thank you very much.
oh, sorry, no, it. And I just wanted to add, could I? One thing, I think that the Mickey Rogers had withdrawn her submission or her objection to that, from what I understood. From her. I don't know if it was submitted too late or whatnot, but. Sure. The garage, as I don't know if could we pull up the picture of the house or the site plan to show that the house actually starts at the back of the garage and it's not attached. So the house is extremely deep to the lot, which creates the measurements taken from the very front of the front two houses or the front of the garage. So that makes the lot size or the dwelling size so big. And if I were to, if I wanted to conform to the 17 meters, I would have to tear down the house to move it forwards. I want to say, I think it's 180 feet deep.
No.
Yeah, can you explain the canopy and the side lot lines and why the canopy cannot comply?
Canopy.
Well, we're going back to, I guess it was the that is the fact of the pergola that is with the overhang of 1.6 meter or feet. That is from the cantilever that affects the sorry, can I
Give him a sec.
Sorry, could we go, could you, sorry, I'm lost. Could we, could you ask the question again, please?
Yeah, so one of the variances you're asking for is the rear canopy
Yes.
will encroach into the side lot line. So I'm trying to understand exactly what's the purpose of that and why it cannot comply.
And to add to that, that was behind my question as well, because as I read the drawings, it is an overhang. The second floor overhangs the first floor at the back. And then there's a little 1 foot 6 inch additional extension, and that's been called in all of your drawings as the pergola.
Yes.
But it doesn't look as though the pergola or that extension occurs on the sides of the building, in which case I have the same question that my colleague has. Why is it affecting the side yard setback?
It doesn't actually, I just got a text from the designer. It's doesn't actually affect on the side. It's just out the back. And it's flush with the ground floor, from what I understand. I hope that helps. I hope that helps.
Okay, well, you've got variance number 1 talks about an encroachment into the west side lot line, and variance number 2 is the rear canopy encroaching into the east side lot line. And so that's why I don't understand what the purpose of that is.
I'm not quite, the purpose of it, I think, was just as a design feature, to be honest with you, I think.
No, but if to Mr. Solomon's point, if it only extends out the back, then it doesn't. I'm putting words in your mouth. But if it only extends out the back, I think we both Mr. Solomon and I are having the same problem. If this thing only extends out into the rear yard, and it's flush with the sides of the building, then why would you need the 2 variances that talk about it impinging on the side yard setback? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds like a technicality.
Yeah. We're willing to take it out if it's an issue.
I think you technically need it, but the point is that it continues on. It's flush with the house, so you're not actually, the pergola isn't actually intruding into the side
yard
more than the existing wall of the house of the addition, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So it sounds to me like it's a bit of a technicality.
Okay.
Okay.
Please.
Well, I just have a question. So is there no concern from the abutting neighbor?
No.
No.
She withdrew that on the 11th of March.
Which neighbor? No, I'm just. I have an email from her saying that.
Yes. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we in committee at the present time? Oh, well, whenever. I didn't know where we were. If we are, I'd like to make a motion. Okay, unless my colleagues have concerns, I was confused by this pergola, and I'm sorry that that took such a long time, but it didn't make sense to me. And thanks, Barb, for the clarification. That's been very helpful. I don't have any other concerns with the application. I was trying as well to respond to the letter of opposition, which has been withdrawn. So with that, I'd like to move approval of the application without any conditions. I think it's a reasonable proposal, and I think it fits into the area.
Hi. My name is Ashley C. I'm the designer and spouse of the homeowner. Okay, thank you. So thank you for your time and consideration in this hearing. We would like to briefly provide our purpose for requesting 2 minor variances, address our neighbors' concerns, and provide our perspective when the home was designed. We are a growing family of 3 with a 2-year-old daughter. We have lived at 62 Glenside since 2009, and we have every intent for our family to continue to grow here. Since our home is small and home prices in the area are unaffordable, the option that best suits our family's needs is to add a second story. The first minor variance we are seeking is an increased FSI. The allowable GFA is 1,593 square feet, and we are requesting 1,823 square feet. This is a 230 square feet or 14% increase from the allowable GFA. Committee of Adjustment Notices research summary that we submitted prior to this hearing shows precedents for 8 local properties that received, on average, an FSI of 0.82. We are only asking for 0.7. Most of these properties are existing one-story detached bungalows that add a second story or rebuild to a two-story house. In regards to our front yard setback minor variance, this research document also shows precedents for 5 local properties that were approved for front yard setback variances that on average equate to a 1.1 meter difference from what they were required and what they were approved. We are asking for a difference of 0.98 meters. We would first like to state that most of the concerns raised were not related to the minor variances we are requesting. However, we will address a few to show that we consider these during our design process. I would like to address the current streetscape of Glenside Avenue. 72 Glenside has pointed out that there are already 6 two-story houses on the west side of Glenside and potentially 2 more at 14 Glenside that was approved for a lot severance. The entire east side of Glenside is 2- and 3-story semi-detached houses. I firmly believe that I would not be destroying the uniform streetscape because it is no longer uniform, as gentle evolution of density and improvements have been made on our street and our community as a whole. That said, I greatly respect the design of these bungalows, and as 72 Glenside pointed out, the existing bungalow roofs are pitched and create a rhythm along the street. I appreciate this rhythmic gesture and would like to continue this form and pay respect to the typology of the bungalow. A flat roof, as requested by 61 Redwood and 72 Glenside, would definitely not respect and reinforce the general and physical patterns of the neighborhood. The design of our house was centered on preserving the character of the existing bungalow. We've maintained the width of the house, haven't asked for maximum height, and have kept the extra area in the backyard and only on the second floor where it is more private and hidden from street. We're keeping the existing brick on the first floor exposed, and all window and door locations on the ground floor will be left the same, in line with preserving the patterns of the existing bungalows. In regards to privacy concerns from Redwood Avenue, there is a steep grade change, almost 13 feet, between Redwood and Glenside, and the distance between our proposed second floor overhang and the back deck of 71 Redwood is approximately 83 feet. The distance and grade change, along with many mature trees that separate Glenside Avenue and Redwood Avenue residents, we see no major impact to privacy. With respect to 2 large white pines in our backyard, we have no intent to harm these trees. A tree protection zone will be put in place, and any trimming, which we do not intend to do, will be performed by a certified tree arborist. I want to conclude that we value Glenside Avenue streetscape and incorporated this in our home design. We also value the thoughts and concerns of our neighbors and have such obtained 17 letters of support, which we felt was a good representation to proceed. We did not ask all 26 other bungalow owners on Glenside Avenue. Only 1 resident, a bungalow owner, on Glenside has objected our proposal. That means that the remaining 25 detached bungalows on the west side of our street either support or have no objection to the renovation. Most importantly, our immediate adjacent neighbors at 60 and 64 Glenside, who are long-term owners, fully support our minor variances and have no objections or concerns with respect to privacy or sunlight. The changing streetscape and gentle evolution of density on Glenside Avenue was already established by the transition of 4 bungalows to 2-story homes. This is also evident throughout our community in Leslieville. As with our neighbors, Okay. As with our neighbors who have done the same, we look forward to growing our family in this lovely community we call home. Thank you.
Yes, hello. Thank you. Hello, my name is Dara Gelman, and thank you for including me today. I am the resident and one of the owners of 61 Redwood Avenue, and I've lived here for almost 5 years. My backyard faces the backyard of 62 Glenside by 1 house over, so you could say that I am directly kitty corner to the house in question. Prior to today's meeting, we weren't contacted by the property owners, but my partner did reach out to speak with one of them before today. And my understanding that there are no letters of support from owners on Redwood Avenue, but there are some additional letters of concern or opposition. So I do have multiple concerns about the height of this proposal and its impact on the privacy of my home and that of my neighbors. I am concerned about the important trees on the property, and I also have concerns about my own family's ability to enjoy and use our outdoor space due to construction issues that might arise because of COVID-related restrictions. So in regards to the proposed height of the property, from looking at the drawing, it looks like they are wishing to double the total height of the property, which does make it higher than any house that I can see in any direction from my view towards Glenside and on either side of my home. The owners of 62 Glenside have communicated that they are not putting any living space into the peaked roof area, but the drawings do show that a study on the second floor only has a 6-foot high ceiling, and that the roof space above it is being used to add height as well as a sunlight, which does not seem to correspond with the idea that it is a simple 2-story addition, but rather a 2.5 or maybe even 3-story addition. I understand what the applicant was saying about the look of the house, but I don't understand why a 9-foot peaked roof would be allowed instead of a flat roof, which would seem more appropriate in terms of height. 2 doors down from me on Redwood at 55 and 58 Redwood, a single bungalow was demolished and rebuilt into 2-story buildings, and my understanding is that they were denied an extensive peaked roof due to height issues, and they did have flat roofs. As a side issue, the increased height of this large roof will also significantly impact our view from the rear of our home, and that impacts the vista and our enjoyment of our property. I do believe that the privacy incursion of this building would be rather significant. It will look directly down over and onto our yard and directly into all of our personal living space windows, which is a significant incursion into our privacy due to a large wall of windows planned for their renovation. Even with the grade difference, no houses on Glenside have this kind of privacy infringement into our home, and this would be a distinct and negative change to the privacy we enjoy in our home and backyard, and it would really change the relationship between the houses on Glenside and Redwood in this section. In regards to the local trees, they do have 2 white pines of approximately 60 years of age, possibly older, that offer a significant habitat to many birds, and we are in a flight path towards the globally significant important bird area of Tommy Thompson Park. I myself have witnessed dozens of species using these 2 white pines. I am concerned about the impact to these trees, as the homeowner has stated that they do intend to cut off branches during the construction, and it is clear from looking at those trees that branches have already been removed, which of course can affect the health and welfare of these heritage trees. This would be a profoundly negative impact for wildlife in this area and would affect the environment that my and my neighbors' homes are in. I understand that a TPZ is going, or hopefully will be established around these trees, but in my direct personal experience, I have seen trees 2 doors away from me within TPZs have branches carelessly removed by workers, even though they are in a protection zone, and there is no recourse once this occurs. Yes, so I'm requesting that the TPZ is somehow monitored and that documentation is provided before and after. I'm also asking that the applicant consider construction hours to restrict those, as we have nowhere else to go during COVID except for our home. And I also have deep concerns about dust and debris in our backyard, which is our only significant outdoor area and also houses an extensive food garden that we have spent years caring for. Thank you. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, so just to start off, I did contact 3 residents on Redwood. I contacted the one directly behind me that shares our property line, and then one either side of them. So I just didn't do the entire street because I just thought that it was more important to do the ones directly impacted by this. So for the proposed height, just to draw attention, we're not proposing a 6-foot high ceiling in our study. The entire second floor is 9 feet. So there's no interest in having a third floor or an attic space for living. I'm not sure why it seems as if there's a 6-foot high ceiling in the study. There's not. It's a 9-foot high ceiling. In terms of the height, we aren't asking for any height variances. We're actually below what is the maximum. Generally, as I stated before, we'd like to keep the typology of the bungalow and stick with the peak roof. I don't think that a flat roof would achieve the same rhythmic gesture throughout the street. In terms of the privacy, so Redwood, as I said before, is a lot higher than Glenside. And actually, our proposed second floor is only going to align with the ground floor of the Redwood residence. So when we look at our window at our second floor, we're going to actually be lower or at the same level as the first floor for the Redwood residence. So it would be kind of impossible for us to be towering over, looking into their backyards, especially because there is the entire property lines that we share with the Redwood residents. There's mature trees running along it, which provide a lot of privacy. In terms of the tree, I met with Dara's partner, I believe. They reached out to me as well as the neighbor behind them, and I had them over and we were chatting about the design, and I was trying to ease any concerns they had. A couple branches have had to be trimmed or have fallen during storms over the course of the tree's life. So, and again, we're not planning on harming the tree. We love this tree. We're relying on this tree for privacy because we also value privacy. So we'll do whatever we can to make sure that the tree is safe. And I think, yeah, that's all.
I think this is a very appropriate kind of intensification, adding a second floor onto the ground floor and not expanding the footprint of the overall building. I also prefer the pitched roof over a flat roof because in my mind, the flat roof would go fairly high and create a very box-like large mass, which would not fit in with the character of the pitched roof building. So I believe the variances are minor in nature, and I would move approval of the variances subject to urban forestry conditions.
Could I just ask one question before we vote? Is this a two-family dwelling? Because the plans indicate kitchen, living room, dining room, bedrooms on both the basement floor and the main floor. I just would like to understand that. And having said that, I endorse everything that Mr. Solomon said. I also agree with the pitched roof. And if there was ever a model for expanding, using the existing footprint and putting another level on top, I think is the right answer.
Hello? Hi, no, yep, that is a mother-in-law suite.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, yes, I am.
Hi, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me now? Yep. So my name is Mike De Oliveira. I'm here representing 198 Major Street, and I'm with Replacement Design located at 911 Davenport Road. So our revised plan is just a change to the site plan. We had extensive conversations with May Wong from Community Planning in order to adjust the application to be something that they would be in support of. So our numbers don't change for any of the variances, but we did do changes to the materials for the soft landscaping in the front yard in order to make it permeable.
My question was along the same lines. I can't see the difference in the plans, and yet planning would like us to call up the plans in a decision. What did you change the nature of the paving, or did you add more soft land? What actually did you change?
So our proposal wasn't to change any of the landscaping in the front yard because we weren't actually changing uh, any of the features really. We were rebuilding the existing porch, we're just kind of building our one-story addition within the outline of the porch itself. So our plan wasn't to change any of the landscaping, but planning came back to us with concerns about water runoff. So we agreed to make the areas permeable. So we added a portion of the parking space to be gravel in order to allow for some more permeable area there, and also change the walkway to the left of the porch to be a permeable walkway. So they were okay with those changes, and we're happy to write a report in support of our application subject to those changes.
Are they, I don't see those details, but are they reflected on the new site plan?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you.
Just on that, so the variance is, like, it still says 0% soft landscaping. I get the permeable doesn't technically get included, but
yes,
doesn't gravel?
No, gravel still counts as hard landscaping. So even though it is permeable, our numbers don't change.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any difficulty with this application. I think it's straightforward and reasonable. I'm happy they were able to have a constructive dialogue with planning, and I would like to move approval of the application subject to the planning department's requested condition.
Hello, hello. Yes, I'm here. This is Mr. Robert Fleck. Hold on, I'm just gonna, can you still hear me? Sorry, can you say one more time? Hello?
Chair, very straightforward. No difficulties with this one at all. I think it's quite minor. I move approval. I don't, or any conditions.
Hello? Yes, speaking. Yes. Did you want me to go through my presentation or just speak to that change in particular? Yes. Sure, sure. Okay, sure. So I guess just to start off, Vanessa Fong, agent, architect, and agent for the owners. So the change that was requested by planning came in at the end of February 25th, I believe. And there is a staff sort of email PDF that I believe is part of the package that is on file. And so what happened was the public notices had already gone out. And then we got an email from our planner requesting an increase in rear yard softscaping. So originally the variance was 19.6%. And we came to an agreement, which I believe is outlined in that email with our planner to increase the softscaping to 28.7%. In the presentation package that we had supplied, I don't know if you're able to go to that, but we kind of show the area of green or softscaping that was agreed upon. No problem. Mm-hmm. That is correct. Sure. No. Nope. No. Yes, so that is 32.45 square meters now. That is the only change, yes. That's correct, yes. No problem. Yes, no architectural changes. Yes, so the only revision to the set was the site plan, which is the drawing you're at right now, and essentially what happened was we just took away some hardscaping and replaced it with softscaping. Yeah. Yes. Sure, that's no problem. Okay, sure. So this is application for a rear addition to the semi-detached at 151 McPherson. So the first variance that we were applying for, if you want to go to the next page, please, is softscaping. So we're just outlining here the area of softscaping that has been agreed upon with our planner at 28.7%. I'll go next to the main wall heights, which there are two variances, one for the front wall and one for the rear wall. So for the front wall, the elevation on your left-hand side, we are asking for a building height of 10.24 meters. That does go, they are measuring right up to the height of the dormer, so the top red line. We are maintaining a pitched roof that is consistent with the streetscape at the moment, but one of the reasons why the height is triggered is because the dormer width is a little bit wider than that would allow it to, I guess, bypass being considered a main wall height in order to make the kind of internal bathroom work. So that's the front elevation, the front main wall. And then at the rear, we are again triggering the main wall height to be 10.6 meters. That's because we are sort of, I guess, popping up the rear portion of the third floor roof to be flat roof. So the third floor main wall is considered the full length. I do want to note, though, that we are stepping back both the second and third floor quite considerably. If you actually go, I believe the next slide has a rendering, so you can see it in 3D. There it is. So we are stepping back the third floor considerably to, I guess, lessen the impact of the massing, so that it isn't reading a full kind of 3 stories straight up in elevation. Another part of the reason is the homeowner is actually 6'5" tall. So in order to make the spaces work, we had to bump up the ceiling heights on the third floor. And then the last variance we are applying for is floor space index. And I believe on the next page, we have done sort of like just gathered a little bit of research in terms of what has been approved in this area. So the pink items are C of A decisions in the area that either reflect the FSI, which we are requesting for, which is 0.98 or greater in our area, or a similar square footage overall. All the houses kind of flanking McPherson, shown in pink, are 0.98 or higher. And then the ones we just want to show on Roxborough, the lot sizes are quite larger, but the home sizes shown in pink are served to a similar size in terms of square footage. And those are the 4 variances we are applying for. Yep.
I am. Can you hear me? Yeah, it's Peter Weinbergen, and I live at 149 MacPherson, so that's the other half of this semi. I have had a number of pardon me? That's right, exactly. I've had a number of conversations with my neighbors about this addition, and I've expressed 4 concerns to them. 2 of them are probably not committee of adjustment concerns. They're more technical and with regards to underpinning that they're planning to do for the basement. And there's been a number of horror stories, as I'm sure you're well aware, with underpinning. And the second concern I had was with the height, considering that this is a semi, having one half being considerably higher than the other half, I was concerned with the look, first of all. I think from the front of from the street, they've done a great job, dealing with that. So I'm less concerned with that now, having been able to look at and talk it through with him. I did express some concern around that height of the dividing wall in between and how we make sure that there's no leakage that occurs from that differential height on the roof. And he has assured me, or made some assurances as to how that will be dealt with in the building process to make sure that we don't have any issues there. The main concern, obviously, is the very significant extension on the back across all 3 floors, even though there are step backs. That will have quite an impact on my home and the light into both my home and into the garden. And I want to be cooperative, and I will be in this case. Because there's been a number of accommodations in this process from the neighbor to address some of my concerns. I would say I'm reluctantly in support or okay with it, I guess. But that would be that's the place where I have the most concern. It seems quite significant compared to any other home on the street in terms of how much further this house will extend backwards and how little garden is left at the end. Obviously, how big the garden is more my neighbor's concern than mine. But the shadowy impact on my side was the main concern that I have. So as I said, I'm reluctantly in support of this for whatever it means. I just felt it was important to express my opinion here to the committee. I can't hear anybody else, so I don't know if I'm still on. Thank you.
Hi.
So I think the variances are minor in nature. I think what the applicant has done at the rear is a good compromise by stepping back the second and third floors, and so it minimizes the potential impact. Those are my comments. I'll put forward a motion to approve the variances as amended. I believe there was that change to variance number 1, so approve as amended, subject to urban forestry conditions.
Good evening, members from the Committee of Adjustments. Laszlo Karekas, the architectural designer, representing Rachel Chang and Richard Park as the owners of 450 WINNETT. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, unless my colleagues have any concerns, I don't have any concerns with this application. I think it has extremely minimal impact on the neighbors and the community. It has a lot of support, including the support of the neighbors on either side. And on that basis, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval without condition.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, committee staff, and committee members. Yes, I'm with you, and I really appreciate your acceptance of showing our presentation. It's only for visualization purposes for you to understand our presentation better. No, I will be speaking. She will be responding to specific questions in case necessary. Otherwise, I'll be the sole presenter. Yes. So before I start, I would like to let the panel know that we had basically revised the drawings We do not need any more variances for the balcony on the west side of the house. We have created extra privacy and extra garden on the balcony on the south side of the house, and we have created a planter box on the east side of the house towards the concerned neighbor. We are open to changing that planter into a privacy screen or eliminating that balcony requirement completely if necessary. If you can go to the next page. At the moment, we're keeping the variances the way they are, except the first. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so basically the variance on the balcony on the west side is completely eliminated. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so if I can continue, basically, we visited the neighborhood on 3 occasions. We had multiple meetings with the neighbors through online meetings. As you know, this is the COVID time, and it's a little bit hard to get in touch with all the neighbors, but we tried our best. If you can go to the next slide. I want to bring to your attention that Warren Road is to the bottom of this drawing. North will be to the left of this drawing, and I wanted to show you that the buildings to the south of our property have a very long distance towards our house, and they are oriented orthogonal to our property. If you can go to the next slide. There's a wide variety of designs in this neighborhood. I wanted to show you that 18 Warren Road in front of us is having a very similar character, and we've tried to keep the character of this type of design, which is exactly in front of our property. If you can go to the next slide. We would like to demonstrate the massing of this house within the street. We created this rough rendering schematic just to show how the house will sit inside the street. If you can go to the next slide. Basically, we want to show you that the existing setbacks on the existing property on top of this slide have been improved with our proposal. If you go to the next slide. We have improved the numbers, as you can see on the screen. On the south side, we're actually over what the required setbacks are. On the north side, we're also over what the requirements are. It's a minor improvement, but it's still very reasonable. And also the front setback of the property is now complying with the zoning bylaw. If you can go to the next slide. Basically, these are improvements that we have made on the balconies. You can go to the next slide. This is the existing condition from the house. As you can see, the existing house does have a lot of privacy concerns with regards to the neighbors, both through the windows and the 2 terraces that it has on the existing house. If you can go to the next slide. And also we want to demonstrate that having terraces in this neighborhood is a common character within the neighbors. As you can see, all the neighbors around us do have terraces looking into our backyard. And also the existing structure does have that. So next slide. Basically, the major point for this house is that the mass of the house is shifted from north to south by about 1.5 meters, and also the floor plates are not lining up exactly on top of one another. So if you can go to the next slide, this is more visible on the elevations. As you can see, the major variance for depth and length that we are requesting is actually below grade to the basement foundation walls, and what the neighbors will see and will feel on the second floor is actually about 20.25 on the north side and 20.57 on the south side of the property. If you can go to the next slide. Sure. If you can go to the next slide, next one. Basically, this shows that the length and depth is in line with the character of this neighborhood. A lot of the houses in this neighborhood have these basically large depth and length existing.
So I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So variance number 1, is variance number 1 being deleted?
Half.
And also we have proposed privacy screens and planter boxes to the platform on the east side of the house.
Are those privacy screens and planter boxes on some particular drawing that we can refer to?
Yes, they are on the preceded drawings on, if they can load the drawings. Okay. It's on second floor drawings, basically.
Okay, and they're presumably what you negotiated with neighbors, is that correct?
This is what we discussed with the neighbors, and also we discussed with the city planning staff. We added them, and some of the neighbors were okay with it. Some of the neighbors still didn't like it.
Okay, and if that got support, can you again remind me what drawing that is? Because we don't have it, right? It's in...
No, you do have it. You do have it. It's in the second floor drawings on page A102 on the drawing sets.
On the ones we have, or the new ones?
Yes, on the ones you have. These drawings were submitted before, yeah.
Yeah, and I got a question on variance number 2. If you can just explain the building length in terms of I guess it's the basement that has one length, and then the rest of the building has a different length?
So basically, we do have a length on the south side, which is different than the length on the north side, A. B, the basement length in the is different from first floor, is different from second floor on all different levels. If they can pull up that elevation drawing, this will be much more clear in the presentation. That is the basement. Yes, that is the basement. Yeah. Exactly. It's about 20 meters. So if you look into these drawings, you can realize how below grade and above grade are different. Significantly different. And also we did work with the neighbors in terms of showing them how this will have minimal to no impact in terms of shadowing compared to existing and as of right zoning bylaw requirements.
And just while we have this diagram, the balcony variance, which balcony is it now that is remaining for a variance? Is it the rear
It's the one on the bottom to the left. Is on the one to the yeah.
And so that is in the rear yard.
That is in the rear yard. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me. Thank you. I'm a lawyer acting on behalf of Stephen Walker, who lives at 17 Warren Road, which is next door to the proposal on the north side. And as you noted, I submitted a letter on Mr. Walker's behalf, which sets out my client's concerns with the variances. While it's our opinion that the proposal fails to meet each branch of the four-part test under the Planning Act, I intend to focus this evening simply on the impact of the variances on my client's property to illustrate that the variances are not minor and they're not appropriate or desirable. In particular, I want to focus your attention on the building length and depth variances as they apply to the north wall of the proposal, which is abutting my client's property. In the applicant's presentation today and in his comments to the neighbors in the past, he sought to downplay this variance by stating that most of the additional length is located below grade. But the ground and second floors of this proposal still exceed the permitted length by a substantial margin and will have a substantial impact on my client. The ground floor length of the north wall appears to be 21.78 meters. And I say it appears to be because the plans submitted to the committee are actually inconsistent and filled with errors. A quick look at the site statistics on the first page of the plan shows that they've misidentified the required side yard setback, they've left the proposed building length as TBD, and they've misstated the building depth by about 3 meters. But regardless of this, the ground floor length is still nearly 5 meters beyond what is permitted. And the second floor is slightly shorter, but only so that it can accommodate this oversized balcony. To exacerbate this condition, the applicants extended this north wall as close as possible to the lot line without attracting a setback variance, and that's at 1.2 meters. The result of all of this is that the imposition of a 25-foot high concrete wall extending almost 16 feet beyond what's permitted as of right along the property line and looming over my client's patio and rear yard. There is no relief offered by this giant wall. It's what my client will look out at from its kitchen window and its upstairs bedroom window, and it's what they'll sit beneath when trying to enjoy their once sunny patio. These variances create an undue adverse impact on my client's use and enjoyment of his home. My client included some conceptual before and after photos that you see before you now that illustrate the impact of this wall. The applicants also provided some slicker conceptual renderings of the extended wall that frankly don't look much better. This is important. It's important because the applicant seems to be relying on the existing length and depth of my client's home and other homes in the area for justification of its proposed variances. But when you look at the site plan, and I'd ask if Mr. Bulger can turn that up, you'll see that my client's existing house is designed so that its length and depth don't negatively impact the neighboring property. You can see it at the bottom of the page right there. You can see that the house sets itself back about 5 meters from the property line as it moves back, moving away from the neighbor's backyard. It staggers itself so that it's not a monolithic straight line of brick wall facing the neighbors, like the proposal before you is proposing. And that's what makes this design so frustrating. The applicant could obtain the length it wants while lessening the impact on its neighbors. The next speaker, Mr. Wood, even has ideas about how this can be done without losing any GFA. And my client has even proposed an option to the applicant to mitigate the impact by setting the north wall back a few meters when it reaches the 17-meter as of right length, to at least give my client a little bit of a break from the imposing concrete wall. That would even serve to alleviate the oversized balcony condition and address the related concerns with privacy and overlook, but the applicant has chosen not to do this. This leads me to the inevitable conclusion that the proposal is not desirable or appropriate for the development of the land. It's completely unsympathetic to its surroundings, and it doesn't adapt to or respond to existing conditions. Of course, this isn't surprising. If you look at the very first page of the plan submitted, you'll see that this house is depicted in the middle of a field with no neighbors or trees in sight. This house was not designed with its neighbors in mind. It does not fit with the condition, and it does not fit with its neighbors. But it could be. This house could be designed in a way that gives the applicant what it wants in a new house while still being kind and considerate to its neighbors. This design is not it. The variances it requires are not minor, they're not appropriate, and they should not be approved by you today. Subject to any of your questions, those are my submissions on this. Thank you.
I can be heard. Can I be heard? All right. Dennis Wood is my name. I'm with the law firm of Wood Bull, LLP. We're a municipal planning law firm. And I'm here today speaking to you on behalf of Ian and Cynthia Webb, the owners of 58 Clarendon, who oppose this project. I should note at the beginning that my clients have not been consulted by the owners at any time. Could I move to the next slide, please? This is our client's property is in blue. Next slide, please. These are the variances that are requested. Next slide, please. This is important. Our client abuts to the south. So the variances and this crisply identifies the issue of the lengths. It's 16.95 at the basement floor on the south, 17.81 on the first and ground, and 22.39 at the second floor. You'll notice that the lengths at the basement are on the north side. This is important later when I ask you about conditions. Next fact, or next slide. These are the distances to give you an idea, the 17 meters. And we're looking at the first floor length here of 17.81 to give you an idea. This also shows something that's important, which is that the second floor on the south side cantilevers over the patio. So that's why the second floor, or the first floor length, is less than the second floor length that I showed you just a minute ago. Next slide, please. This is my client's present view from his yard. The house is, of course, on the left side. Next slide, please. This shows approximately where the building would be extended to. The blue is trying to depict where the patio is, and the red area is the overhang. Next slide, please. This is a view from the second floor. Next slide, please. This is the view that they will see when if this new building were constructed. Again, showing the overhang. Next slide, please. The building, I'm just noting here that the building will be 1.6 meters from the lot line, but that is for the entire length of this extension, additional length. Next slide, please. Under the old bylaw, you may remember that when it went beyond the 17 meters, each part of the building would have to step back 7.5 meters. This is simply to indicate that there was an awareness of the problem of extending beyond the 17 meters. Not that I'm suggesting that that should apply here. I simply wanted to refer back to reference the fact that the 17 meters is very important because if allowed, it allows the building to be very close to the lot line, our client's lot line. Next slide. This is what our client has on its east side, which is it has a building that extends considerably into the rear yard. Next slide. This shows how far that goes into the rear yard from the townhouses that are located to the east. Next slide. The point we're making here has to do with space that's within the second floor that have what I will describe as a very rich amount of space that's available. Could I look at the next slide? Available to allow one of the requests I'm making of the committee, which is to reduce the length at the second floor of this building to approximately 17.64, and create a jut-in, if I can call it, at the second floor level over the canopy. So in other words, remove the canopy and have no wall except to the point that's at the bottom where it says potential area removal. And we found that the void that's in the house would allow for that exchange of space without a net reduction in livable space. Next slide, please. Next slide. So this is a more additional space. This is the house at the second floor has a lot of very large spaces. A hallway that's 22.5 meters squared. And we're just looking at approximate areas to give you an idea of the fact that there's a lot of flex inside this building for moving the building back and not having the length that's being requested. Next slide. This balcony is a problem. It faces to the south. there's a balcony, but then there's another balcony element that is to be made inaccessible by planters. Oh, yes, all right. This is a problem. I just ask you to remember if you can ask me about it. Next slide. It's not shown, that balcony constraint's not shown in the next slide. Next slide. These are the conditions we'd ask you to apply. If you're going to approve this application, please explicitly condition the approval to limit the walls on the south side to what is shown on the plans. That's basically what point number 2 is, and condition that balcony so that it has the inaccessible space not made part of the balcony someday later when those plans. And thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yep. So basically, to the first presenter, I would like to let them know that we've done multiple zoning reviews before coming to the Committee of Adjustment. We reduced our number of variances initially required from 12 to 8 and then subsequently to 3. And also the pictures that are shown by this neighbor to the north are a little bit of over exaggeration of how that wall is. And that's not a concrete wall. It's going to be concrete panels that look like limestone. We've given them the option of putting in a green wall there. We've given them the option of coming and choosing the exact type of trees that they want to be planted between these two trees. We are complying with the setback on that side. At the same time, their house is located very close to the property line. If you look at the survey, their house has only about 0.05 meters of setback on that side. And the reason we didn't have our length on our zoning chart was because of the complexity of the design. We didn't know which wall exactly we would be taking. That's why we did multiple zoning reviews on this. And if you go to our presentation, yes, if you go to the shadow study, yeah, if you go back a little bit, yes, so if you go a little back, these are the different options that we basically reviewed with them. We did full rendering demonstrations of how this would look like and how those 2D drawings are over exaggerated and not reflective of how this will truly look like. We even gave them an option of putting in that green wall or any type of trees that they want, or even putting in a privacy screen if this balcony is their concern at the backyard. However, they didn't like any of these. And then if you go to the shadow study, we also demonstrated for them through multiple shadow studies that there will not be significant shadow problems as this house is lower in height than what we are allowed to build. And it's only 7.5 meters considering it's a flat roof. Also, you can compare, this is the exact timing that they were sensitive about. It's a December time. However, we still did a shadow study for them and showed them the shadows in their backyard are not impacted by this proposal, considering what we can build based on the zoning bylaw. Also, I have to mention to the committee that their house to the north has a front setback of 9.5 meters, which is sitting further back behind our property. Even if we comply with the as of right, as you can see in the second column, the house is going to be covering their patio space, and it's going to be a higher house because we have to go up another story. And lastly, I would like to mention that since we put that balcony in the back side, we were keeping an eye out to make sure they're not feeling this length of the wall, and we're actually cutting down the house on the second floor on that side of the property. We can go to Mr. Woodballs if committee does not have any question. I can go to Mr. Woodbull's comments if there are no questions. Yeah, so if I can basically go to there, basically I would like to first mention, if you go to the second slide of this presentation, sorry, yeah, third slide, sorry, my bad. Yeah, basically, as you can see, the houses to the south of our property are more than 25 meters away. And that 25 meters is a requirement for a tall building. We are not building a tall building. A. B, basically, this house that we are designing is going to be an off-grid house for a family of 2 children, a husband and a wife. And in order to bring in natural light and reduce our heating and cooling loads, we need windows on the south side. The reason we have so many openings in the second floor is to bring in natural light from the south side without causing privacy problems. That's why if you look at the windows, yeah, all I can say is that we have tried to accommodate these neighbors, and a lot of them were hesitant to even speak with us and came with these objection letters to the committee without opening up and talking to us. No problem. Mr. Wood, no, those proposals were not shared with us before this meeting. They were directly submitted to the Committee of Adjustment. We tried contacting the neighbors on Clarendon 3 times. Once their son answered the door, and we left them with information to contact us. They never contacted us, and they came to the committee with those. Yeah. Basically, considering that this house is a greenhouse and it's going to be designed as an off-grid house, we even have a slide from our energy consultant that the more flat roof area we have, the more we can get closer to off-grid houses and sustainable development. The proposals that they're bringing to the table will create a lot of circulation problems, will create a lot of lighting problems in the main floor, and also will basically change the layout of the bedrooms to much less usable bedrooms on second floor. Okay.
I do feel that the building length and depth are concerns. I think that the length will have an impact on the adjacent neighbors, especially it's a two-story wall that would extend almost 16 feet, it seems. And it would affect the abutting neighbors, and so that's the concern that I have. Yeah, my concern, I have difficulty supporting this application. My concern relates to the building length and depth.
So I'll go. First of all, I think it is a remarkable design. It's a lot of thought has gone into how they've organized various spaces, and It's a very modern kind of look, and sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. But I do know that there are others in the neighborhood that are like that. And I do appreciate that the applicant has already made some changes to the variance list. Having said that, you look at the configuration, it's actually one of those strange lots that is right in the middle of a street, a short street that looks right down and is into the backyards of many others. Given that, I do have some concerns about the length as well. I understand that the at grade level or below grade level is the one that is most offensive, but even the first and second story exceed the permitted length by, more than 3 meters, which isn't insignificant. Even though these are big lots in a fairly a neighborhood that is characterized by big homes and big lots, that's still a big deal, particularly given how that lot is configured, especially related to the Clendenin site, which backs right onto it. So, I think there may be opportunities for the design to be adjusted a little bit, maybe to take into consideration some of the neighbors' concerns about length and visual massing, and I think for those reasons, I'm sort of leaning towards not supporting this one as well.
I have some difficulties with it, although, like Mr. Clay, I think perhaps in another area, it's a remarkable design. It's very clever. It's imaginative. I think the physical form is quite attractive. I have the same problems as my colleagues with the building length, although having said that, I will compliment the applicant on at least staggering the footprint of the building so that it hasn't got as large an impact on the neighbor that's the closest. It is stepped back. Having said that, the two parts of the plan that I think are indefensible are the two balconies. Having already extended into the backyard of the most closely related neighbor, to stick a balcony then on the second level, even if you say there's some planting along one side, I think he adds insult to injury. Which brings me to the balcony on the other side, which I just don't understand at all. It's a small little balcony and a garden, and as one of the objectors noted, the planted portion could very easily just be another balcony. The planting could just not be put in there, in which case you've got two very substantial balconies which are exacerbating problems you've got with the neighbors already. So I have difficulties with the two balconies, but I want to put it in perspective. I think that there's much about the proposal that is good, but I don't think that it's being respectful of its neighbors, and particularly with the length of the building and the location of those two balconies.
I will move refusal of the variances.
Yes, it is Henry Weidman. I'm representing Helga Altman from 28 LEUTY Avenue. Thank you, Mr. Chair, panel members. Yes, I'm Helga's neighbor from across the street. She asked me to help her express her views. Helga is 85 years old and she is a widow. She purchased her home in 1982. In 2008, Helga built an addition to her garage, converting it from a single to a two-car garage. She was erroneously advised by her contractor at the time that a permit is not required. Now, her garage is currently 52 meters squared. The allowable, I understand, is 40 meters squared. The height of her garage is 4.01 meters. The allowable is 4 meters. Now, the height of her addition is actually lower than the original single-car garage. Her soft landscape is indicated as 0%, but in fact, there is some soft landscaping that goes around the perimeter, around the chain link fence that she has. I estimate that that is approximately, 15 meters squared. And in fact, the downspouts from the rear of her house drain into this garden. She's very much an avid gardener. She takes a lot of pride in making her landscape look lovely. And she says that when she purchased it, that's how she purchased the house. It was like that. Now, surrounding her, her neighbors Sandy and Rick to the south of her, it's my understanding that they do have a two-car garage on their property. And then Beverly to the north has a three-car garage on her property. Now, I know that Beverly has filed an objection, and the objection is regarding the drainage to her property. So some of the water runoff from Helga's property goes on to her. I've spoke to Helga, and Helga is quite prepared to correct that by relocating the downspouts on her garage addition. There's also an objection from Sandy and Rick, her neighbors to the south, and that is concerning a wrought iron fence that is on the southeast corner of the property. So it extends from the original single-car garage and travels east from the garage, and it's impeding their access. So I noticed Rick, going into his driveway, and yes, you have to be very careful and you have to have your wits about you when you do that. Now, a couple things to consider with Sandy and Rick's objection is, number one, the fence actually went up prior to the garage addition. Helga tells me that she had a city inspector actually come to her property and confirm that the location of the fence was permissible. She recently paid a surveyor to check, and the surveyor determined that the fence was actually 2 inches further in from her property line. And then finally, Helga is questioning, though, how the fence and the accessibility issue is connected to her current application, and has indicated to me that she feels that the iron fence and the accessibility is really a totally separate matter. And this is my submission. Thank you, panel.
Richard White, can you hear me? Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm Richard White, and my wife and I are owners and residents at 26 LEUTY. And I refer to our submission that I've presented. Perhaps you can bring it up. We moved in about 5 years ago. It came very clear to us after we bought and moved into 26 LEUTY that it was very difficult to drive our cars into the backyard. And in fact, only a small car can get into that backyard. We cannot park our mid-sized SUV back there. And this is really caused by two issues. And if you go to page 2 on my submission, you can see the garage, the area of the garage before she built the second garage. It was a paid parking area, and so there was considerable parking behind her garage at 28 LEUTY before she built the second garage. After building the second garage, which, by the way, the garage is not used to park a car. It's only used for storage. You can see it's quite an angle to get into that garage, and I think perhaps that makes it too difficult and awkward to use it for parking a car. So the area has been greatly reduced for parking on this property because of that garage. And so the car is often overlapping into the mutual drive area. And you can see that on page 1, picture on page 1, if you just show that quickly. So that blue line on the ground shows the mutual drive area. I cannot get a car in beyond that iron fence with that car overlapping there as it is right now. And you know, to be fair to Helga, our neighbor, if she, you know, she quite often wants room in front of her car to walk around it in front of it, so she doesn't park it up right against the garage all the time. And the other thing is to actually get in, I have to turn at such an angle that not only do I have to go well into the mutual drive, but I have to actually go a little bit over her property to get across to get around that iron fence and get back to our backyard. In our backyard, we have 2 garages. We're only able to use one of them because we can't get our other car back there. You know, here we are in the beaches, which we have parking is set such so limited. So we really would like to use our garages as intended. We are not asking for the garage to be removed. I think that would be, after these 9 years or 10 years that she's had it, would be a bit unreasonable. But we would like that iron fence to be moved back by 2 feet so that we can easily put a car in there, not have to worry if she's overlapping the mutual drive, because we'll be able to move around it without any trouble. And we don't think that is we feel that's a simple solution. We've tried talking to her about it. Previous owners have also tried talking to Helga about it, and without any consideration. By the way, that iron fence may as well be a brick wall. It is very, very robust. There's no movement or flexibility in it at all. So if you do touch it with a car, you are going to get a car scratched up. So I guess that's the main thing that I wanted to say is that we have a predicament here. It has been exacerbated by this garage and the limited parking space that is at 28 LEUTY. Sure. Yeah, so after I had moved, when I moved in, I realized I could not get around that iron fence. I did further inquiries with the previous owner as to what was the history, and I found out that previously there was no garage at that place. So in 2017, I advised the city that there was an illegal garage on that property that was causing us issues. Yes, that's.
Excuse me, I have your photograph up on my computer. I just wanted to clarify, the fence that you're talking about is the one that goes around, it looks like bulk lift container and garbage bins. Am I correct?
That's right.
Okay, and then there's a pergola beside the original garage. That's on your property, correct? The trellis work?
The pergola's on my property, that's correct.
Okay, and the property line is the difference in the color of the paving between dark gray and light gray.
Not quite. Actually, on the slide number, let's see, on page number page number 3. There you can see the property line in blue. That's a mutual drive line, and the actual iron fence is right on our property line.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Can you hear me now? Okay, let me turn my volume up a bit and see if that helps. How's that? Is that better? I'm still faint? Well, just a second. My name is Beverly Howell. I'm the owner and resident at 30 LEUTY Avenue. And I'm opposing the variances in terms of having been a neighbor here. I've lived here for 35 years, and over that time, there have been a series of issues with my neighbor, Helga Altman. And it appears to me historically that there has been no way that she's been willing to discuss any of the concerns that I've had, which is disappointing because, I don't know, we live in a neighborhood and it's much better to be friendly with your neighbors. So I'm basically saying that the addition of that garage has created further problems for me. And it's not that they weren't there before, but they're much worse than they were. I don't know if you're looking at the slide that I can see. You can see the edge of the garage, and you can see a downspout that goes. Yes, that's it. That downspout goes straight down and has a tiny bottom on it, and any water that comes out of there goes directly on my property, because the one thing to note is that Helga's property is higher than mine. Not massively, but significantly higher. So the downspout from her house, can you see the northwest corner of her house? There's a downspout there. A little further, you can see it on her house there. And what happened with that is that flows down this side of her property. The other one flows down. And if you look at the pavement, you can see some of with the melt off, that there's significant, it's still melting from her property onto mine. So when there's a rainstorm, or some of the torrential rainstorms we've had, I have flooding in my backyard. And there's no point in me trying to improve the way my backyard looks, because I'm always having flooding. And you may note that those bricks are there. I had put other things there, but somebody moved them. I'm just aiming to reduce the flooding. And don't know if you want to look at the second slide, please. That just gives you a view from the other side. Again, you can see the flooding. And my third slide has to do with the fact that in the front of her property, in the front of her house, her downspout goes on my driveway. So there's a consistent drainage problems from the 3 downspouts in her house, which have been very upsetting for me and very annoying, especially since there's no discussion possible around it. I just want to comment on one other thing, which is I'm probably the only other person in the neighborhood that can really see the back of Helga's house and the back of 26 and the back of 28. So I confirm that where she parked, where Rick took a picture of where the parking took place behind 28, that in that case, she went out of her way to pull it in. There are many, many, many instances over the years where her car has blocked that driveway, and it's really, I think it's really unfair. So I request that you, I'm not saying tear it down. This would be, I doubt that you would even consider that. But what I am saying is please, please ask for some consideration for number 26 and for number 30 regarding drainage. The drainage is critical, as well as that downspout, the fence that she put up many, many years ago. And I was here when all that happened, but there's no point in going into the stories. So thank you very much for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Yes, yes. Certainly. Thank you, panel. Regarding Beverly's issue and the drainage, yeah, we are clear, and Helga is clear too, that she knows that you know, city bylaws do not allow you to drain water from your property onto your neighbors. So she is aware about that. I have discussed this with Helga, and Helga has said to me that she will rectify it. So that downspout that Beverly pointed out on the garage, you know, that can be relocated, and Helga has expressed to me that she will do that. So yes, she will commit to correcting the drainage, and that could be a condition that is put into the her application. Regarding Richard's issue, yeah, I totally appreciate what he's saying. You know, in terms of the car overlapping, I would say that's probably accidental. I don't imagine it's intentional. I mean, you know, Beverly can support when I say that my wife has inadvertently sometimes parked our car and blocked part of her driveway, not because she intended to do that, but she just misjudged distances. Helga now has a smaller car. I've noticed that she is much more careful with the way she parks it, so I don't believe the car overlapping will continue to be an issue. Regarding the iron fence, well, again, what Helga said to me around that is she took a great deal of care to make sure she installed a fence that wasn't contrary to city allowances. She's telling me that she actually did have someone from the city come to the property, look at her fence, and say to her that this fence is permissible, and she relied on that. Yeah, and plus she says, you know, she you know, relies on the area by the fence to keep her garbages because she can't walk very far, and that's, you know, the easiest place for her to go to unload her garbages. So that's you know, that's her thought regarding the iron fence.
You're quite right. You can't drain from your property onto another person's property. So I believe if there is an approval that keeping your drainage self-contained should be one of the conditions. I'm not adverse to not approving the application at all. It wouldn't bother me to suggest that the garage be taken down. The problems that have been identified are serious. I think as an alternative, you need to keep the water on your own property, and I do not understand why the fence has to be there in the first place. If she has trouble getting to the garbage cans, if you look at the photograph, I don't know if Bram can bring it up, the photograph that's got her car on an angle and shows the fence, the one that shows the right of way in blue, it's from one of the appellants. I don't see why the garbage cans can't go over where the car is, which would allow the car to go where the garbage cans are, and it wouldn't then be blocking the neighbor. So I would be open to, if you want these variances, taking the fence down as a condition.
Yeah, so I have a lot of problems with this application. You've already mentioned some of the issues. I think the drainage is also a very big issue because the entire backyard is all hard surface. There's one of the variances for 0% soft landscaping. No wonder water is draining onto the neighbor's property because all rainwater is coming from this hard surface draining onto the abutting property. So I cannot support the variances that are before us.
I'm trying to think that, if this application came to us 10 years ago when, before construction, and they're seeking permission for construction, I wonder what the committee would do faced with this as a request. All the points that both neighbors have said are quite legitimate. It seems like some of the annoyances are not necessarily directly related to the variances. I think, the drainage issue is necessarily related to lot coverage or landscaping, and I don't think the garage is related to the other neighbor's access issue into his backyard, or not directly. Having said that, I think there's a causal relationship here. I kind of like what Carl was saying, is that, I don't think anyone really wants to have these things torn down. It's a big imposition. I heard both neighbors say that's not what their intent is. But I kind of like the idea, and whether if we can in fact do that, is that, in exchange for keeping the garage, some accommodation be made to address the drainage issue, which I think is probably an easy fix, and also removing part, anyways, of that iron fence. Legally, yes, she has every right to have that fence there, but as a courtesy to her neighbor, I think, neighbors being neighbors, wouldn't it be nice if part of that fence could be removed so that the neighbor could get access into his driveway? So, if it's allowed, if it's, and Carl, I don't know whether this is something we can do, or maybe we can get some advice from Barb, but that seems like a reasonable accommodation to me.
Yeah, my comment on what's just being discussed is that this is all common sense, and if good neighbors, this would have been resolved a long time ago. And so I have little faith that the owner of this property is going to do anything to address any condition, because if she really was concerned, she would have dealt with the issue of that those water pipes coming down, and would have also moved the fencing away to enable her neighbor to be able to drive their vehicle. So I don't have any faith that the owner of this property will make any changes.
Having said that, I'm not sure that removing the garage addresses the drainage issue, nor doesn't address the fence issue either.
Well, it's not just that. The hard surface in the rear yard has to be dealt with, because that's one of the variances.
Oh, so it would involve lifting, replacing the asphalt.
That's right. Right.
Well, actually, if you refuse the variance, and that includes the soft landscaping, if they have to achieve 50% soft landscaping, that means that your drainage could go on your own property.
No, but then presumably, Mr. Chairman, I think there's two options. If you refuse the application and the owner of this property is going to conform with the bylaws, she's going to have to do something with that asphalt. And either, I would guess that all of it's going to have to be replaced with something that's permeable, and that in the process, one would hope that the city would enact its authority to make sure that drainage is self-contained on the property. And the other option is to approve this with the condition that drainage is to be self-contained on the property and the fence is to be taken down. And fair enough, she put the fence up and it's her fence, but as Mr. Clay indicated, I think it's time for negotiating here. And I agree with Nimrod. The applicant has shown a complete disregard for her neighbors. And I think we've got two options. Well, we've got three. We could require that the garage be taken down. That's unlikely to happen. But I don't think we can ignore this. This is a serious problem. It's the sort of thing that causes neighborhoods to come apart.
Chair, can we, just as a suggestion, I don't want to get this into a prolonged negotiation session, but do you think it would be appropriate to bring back the agent and see whether through the agent the applicant would be willing to consider some of these suggestions we're making?
Yes, I am. Helga, yes, Helga is here well, she's not with me. She's on a separate line. So if she's unmuted, she can speak. Yes, I could call her. I'm not connected to her at the moment, but I could dial her up on my phone and consult with her. Would it be possible to just pause this and then I could give her a no? Okay. Okay, so my sense is I have talked to Helga. She is committed to dealing with the drainage issue, so she will do what it takes to keep the water on her property. In terms of the fence, you know, she loves her fence, but she's willing to take part of it down to allow for easier access for Richard. Now, his proposal was 2 feet. She felt that was a lot. She was thinking perhaps 1 foot.
Mr. Chairman, in response to the spokesman for the applicant's proposal, that's unacceptable. I'm sorry. A foot off of that fence doesn't assist, and it doesn't accommodate. It doesn't allow for the alternate maneuverability that would make it easier for the neighbor to get to his property. I still think it's a reasonable proposal to require that the drainage be self-contained, and we could be specific and say by relocating the rainwater leader. I personally think the fence should come down in entirety, and if there's not an appetite for that, then I'm prepared to support Mr. Solomon's proposal that we reject the application, and the applicant is going to have to make alterations necessary to comply with the bylaw.
So I'd like to put forward a motion to refuse the variances.
I'd second that.
Oh. Jeez.
Mr. Chair, good evening. Yes, sir. Jim Katsopoulos, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's Jim Katsopoulos, 27 Field Flower Crescent. Mr. Chair, I'm here on behalf of the applicant and the owner. Mr. Chair, the application before you seeks 4 variances in order to permit an additional unit in the basement within an existing legal duplex. Mr. Chair, the committee has to, in this case, be cognizant of 2 characteristics for this proposal, and that is the site location and the built form. The property is located at the extremity/outer edge of the neighborhood. It directly abuts the combination of a commercial laneway, parking area, and multi-story commercial and mixed-use buildings along the south side of Eglinton Avenue. Mr. Chair, although the property contains an existing legal duplex that has been in existence on these lands for many years, this use is accommodated within a 2-story detached built form that is characteristic and in keeping with the surrounding built form context to the south. In this instance, Mr. Chair, the existing dwelling will still maintain its appearance as a detached dwelling, thus serving to protect and maintain the existing streetscape of this neighborhood. This circumstance would allow this proposal in front of this committee tonight to comply with the very key provisions of the city's official plan in terms of infill developments. Mr. Chair, there's also the additional variances, one being the existing driveway. And in this case, Mr. Chair, that is a technical variance in that there is absolutely no works being done. It's just to recognize the existing driveway's width. And again, there will not be any works within that part of the site. There's also the proposed second-story deck expansion, Mr. Chair, that will that seeks to increase the size from the bylaws maximum of 4 square meters to 10 square meters. And Mr. Chair, you could see that in this case, there's 2 key components of this second deck. One, it directly overviews into the adjoining commercial laneway to the north. And secondly, Mr. Chair, you could see with the jog and the butt out of the existing dwelling, there will be no opportunity or no ability to overlook into the properties to the south. You can see that very nicely on this drawing. And the other, Mr. Chair, is the reduction in the soft landscaping in the rear to allow, if the committee approves this variance, Mr. Chair, to allow for a 3rd parking spot. Again, that would allow all the vehicles to be located at the rear and thus further protecting the streetscape component of this proposal, Mr. Chair. Those are my comments at this time, and I'll be available for any questions. Thank you.
Hello?
We don't hear the chair.
Yes, hello, Kevin Stark. Yeah. Yes, my name is Kevin Stark at 58 ELMSTHORPE. Are you able to hear me? Okay, so I'd like to address numerous issues I have with this variance. First and foremost, these are not proposed variances. These have actually been constructed and completed. The deck is constructed, and the proposed exemption in terms of using greater amount of paving area is already completed. So my first issue is, shouldn't you seek approval before completing the actions, firstly? Secondly, while the applicant spoke towards the appropriate use, one should bear in mind that historically this was a home that was occupied by the same family for 50 years. Since the occupant took ownership, he violated numerous times the work order process. He had numerous stop work orders for violating various city protocols and permit issues. He has created a back paved area that is solid, that is non-conforming with all the neighborhoods in the surrounding areas. Those of us abutting his property and adjacent to his property, the noise, the traffic, the pollution that will come is very different than if you go just east of our street. There is a street that permits numerous multiplexes, and accordingly those backyards reflect paved backyards. This is a single family dwelling street, and the zoning reflects such. It does not, even though this house has an as of right duplex, the rest of the street does not reflect higher density type uses, and the backyards reflect such. My question relates to things like traffic, things like noise that will come from having multiple cars in the back lot, and then the added traffic, because when you're seeking a variance for a single car drive, ultimately these inhabitants and the residents will not be parking back there. What we found is they park on our street. And if you come to the street currently, you will notice that the residents, and it's no fault of their own, they're not putting up with having to deal with a single tight lane and parking at the back. They're leaving their cars on the road. So this is a street that has a young child's school, just in the middle of the block, and added traffic to it does not help. So I think those are some of the components to it. Also, during the time of the construction, it was known to the residents from the contractors that were not the most friendly, that there's actually the facility to accommodate 2 units in the basement, despite the fact that the resident or the owner right now is only applying for 1. So my question relates to, and my issues with this relate to the enjoyability of my backyard, the flooding that's happened in terms of drainage, and also garbage. We have now found, since this owner has taken over possession on numerous events, that garbage and debris is coming into our yards because they now have more bins and they're not maintaining it. So if this is the type of property manager that can't handle 2 units, how is he going to now handle multiple units? And how is that going to impact us as residents and in a family neighborhood where we've lived for many years without this change of potential use or additional density? So I guess I'll leave it there, and would like your opinions and feedback there. Correct. The deck is constructed, and I, along with other residents, when it was under construction, we contacted the city, and they said that it's not allowed to be constructed without permits. I'm not sure how he did it. The deck is constructed. The additional paved area is completed. It is all paved in the backyard. There's a fence up already, and they tried to do this all. They did it all in a very covert, non kind of open fashion. They came in with a rush job. They did it in a very quick manner to hide that from, I guess, the rest of the neighborhood and seeing what was being done. Yep.
Yes, can you guys hear me? Hello, my name is Daniel Shidvash. I'm the son of Faride Jalalian, the neighbor immediately to the south of the lot in question. Can you guys hear me okay? Sure, it's Daniel Shidvash. It was in the email that I'll be representing here. Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me okay? Sorry about that. Okay, I will do my best. So, folks, I really appreciate the call opportunity today. It's my first time attending such a call. The past few hours has been very informative and a steep learning curve. Nevertheless, with regards to this specific issue, when we received the notice to attend the call, we were puzzled to see the purpose in future tense, stating that it's to convert the duplex into a triplex when we have seen that it is already, to Kevin's point, among everything else, all said and done. I think the applicant has a complete disregard for their neighborhood. I notice even the agent doesn't recognize or acknowledge who lives to the south lot or across on the other side of the rear, only focusing to the north side, which would please you guys, obviously, with their case. In the past few months, just some immediate examples, aside from waste management, shoving the snow over to our property, I can tell you that the two tenants are already occupying the other units. The owner has made a complete joke and laughingstock out of the city by already doing everything that he wishes. You already see the Toronto hydrometer up and running, and yet seeking permission later. So, of course, I don't have to tell you guys, I've noticed you've gone through so many cases, hearing how the peace and privacy of single families is jeopardized when there is densification and obviously drainage issue, more cars, more pollution, more oil water mix, damaging the plants and trees. That whole talk track is there. But I think what we have noticed in the past few months is the irresponsiveness of the owner only until when we got the notice to our complaints is showcasing that he's solely looking at this as an investment property and completely unsympathetic as to his surrounding neighbors. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. My understanding is twofold, sir. First of all, the deck, and we're referring to the second story, sir, I believe. That deck, sir, is currently in compliance with the zoning bylaw. It does not exceed 4 square meters in size. What you have before you, sir, is for the increase of that deck from 4 square meters to 10 square meters. So, sir, that is what you have before you for your consideration. In my understanding, sir, on your second point, from what I've been advised, yes, there is a hard surface laid down for a potential third spot in terms of a parking at the back, if the committee sees fit to approve the additional unit. Oh, can I add something else, sir? Sorry, I was just texted while you were asking me the question. The abutting owner to the south, and I think Mr. Stark's comments, the owner has received and has a sign-off from the City of Toronto Inspections and Building Division on the underpinning and the stairs. And, sir, in terms of the basement portion, if this committee approves this additional unit, the owner will then have to be required to apply for a formal permit in order to facilitate an additional unit in that section. Yes, sir. No, sir. That's what I've been advised.
A couple of questions, if I might. On the site plan, there's a hatched area which seems to show the second floor deck. Now, you'll forgive me with my math. Isn't at this late hour, it's not very good. You said you've built as of right 4 square meters.
Yes, sir.
10. Is that hatched area the 10 proposed square meters? Is that the size of 10 square meters, or is that the 4 meters?
That will be the proposed 10 square meters through you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And secondly, you've seen the transportation staff report, I presume, about the parking variance?
Yes, sir, we have. And as you heard from the Mr. Stark in particular, sir, we feel that this is an appropriate treatment in the rear yard, and that allows another car to be parked if this additional unit is permitted, thus avoiding the potential plethora of vehicles along the driveway and the street, which obviously would protect for the streetscape for this proposal through you to member.
That is not how I described it, sir. You're incorrectly quoting me. I did not quote it that way at all.
So what I just basically take from that is that you're opposed to what transportation staff's recommendation is.
Mr. Chair, we prefer if this committee sees fit to leave that. But if the committee sees fit in terms of potentially looking at a situation to improve it, we could delete the request for the landscaping if the committee sees fit to do that. But at this time, Mr. Chair, we would like to maintain this third parking spot at the back. Through you, Mr. Chair, there will be 2 parking spots in the garage, 1 in the driveway, multiple in the driveway, so we could maintain the bylaw conformity in terms of the Secretary Treasurer's comment.
Barb, I thought the staff report said that if they return it to soft landscaping, they would waive that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would still allow us to provide one parking space per unit, 2 in the garage, the existing garage, and 1 as a result of this extension into the rear yard. But if we were to delete that, we could still have a parking spot in the driveway, in addition to the 2 in the parking in the garage. Through you, Mr. Yes. Oh, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to raise the same point with the request from, or the recommendation from Transportation Services is it's a very odd wording, but what they're recommending is that you don't approve the variance for landscaping, but that you do approve a variance that relieves them of the need for 1 parking space. I am in Barb's hands, but I don't believe we can do that because that's a different variance and we haven't advertised that. Nope. Nope.
Right, so my comments are that with variance number 4, I don't believe that that's a minor variance. It's a change of use from a duplex to a triplex, then I don't see that as a minor variance. It should go through a rezoning. I have concerns with the landscaping matters as well, and that the deck as well is just too large. And so I would refuse the application.
I'm not gonna be in Nimrod's good books going forward, I'm afraid. I I will get to the other issues, but I mean, this is a site which is a walk from Eglinton Avenue, a major thoroughfare in a city where we have a desperate shortage of rental accommodation. I get the duplex, triplex thing. I think we trip over that all the time. I'm not as fussed about conversions from duplex to triplex as I know others are. I think the trade-off of having additional rental accommodation in areas where it makes sense, and a stone's throw from Eglinton, in my view, is an area that could very easily and should be areas where we should be concentrating more density and more rental accommodation. So I'm not opposed to the conversion. I do want to come back to the rear yard. I think it's a tricky one. I'm not that fussed about the deck just because I think it overlooks a laneway, so I'm not that fussed about it. But I wouldn't mind more discussion. Again, I'm assuming that we will have a debate on this, but more discussion about the landscaping issue.
I also don't have a lot of problem with the proposal if you're going to a triplex, but I was concerned with the wording of the report from engineering because it presumed that engineering could authorize a variance, and I just wanted to clarify that that wasn't the case. I don't think I'm as opposed to this application perhaps as Mr. Solomon is. It is a change in use, but I think it's within the concept of the bylaw. So I'm leaning towards supporting the application. What I don't think we can do is what the TPS report is recommending.
Would we be open to a condition that parking area in the rear is permeable or permeable pavers? Well, why don't I then propose a motion that we approve this application in its entirety with no conditions other than the rear parking area be made with permeable pavers.
Hi, my name's Hello once again. My name is Mike De Oliveira. I'm here representing 211 Garden Avenue, and I'm with Replacement Design located at 911 Davenport Road. I promise it's the last one for today.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I couldn't get my mic to work. I have one quick one. It's a question to the applicant. There's no support that I can see from the attached semi. Have you had any conversations with the owners of that property to determine their views on your application?
The owner has had extensive conversations with that neighbor, but they weren't willing to sign a letter in support, but they also weren't in objection to our application. We have stepped the rear one-story addition in slightly from the side property line to mitigate any concerns they would have.
Okay, thank you.
I'll take a stab at it. I think the variances are minor in nature, and so I would move approval of the variances.